This is a new 8-part military thriller podcast series from Point of the Spear. In the previous episode of Rogue Soldier, inside the hospital room, Tom's agitated pacing halted as he heard Jake's voice. He hesitated, then responded, "Jake, is that really you?" Jake's heart sank at the sadness in Tom's voice. "Yes, Tom, it's me. We can work this out together. I need you to release the hostages and we can talk." The tension in the air was palpable as Tom and Jake engaged in a delicate dance of words. The situation was far from resolved, but Jake was determined to reach his former comrade and find a way to bring him back from the brink. Rogue Soldier, Episode 6. Written by Robert Child. Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Deep within the secret CIA command bunker at Walter Reed, Larson monitored the situation with a sense of urgency. He watched the live feed from the security cams and video bugs planted inside the hospital room, observing every movement and exchange between Jake and Tom. The stakes couldn't be higher, and Larson knew that the success of their mission hinged on Jake's ability to defuse the situation peacefully. As Jake's negotiation with Tom unfolded, Larson's superiors at CIA headquarters in Langley maintained constant communication, their voices crackling over a secure line. They issued terse directives, emphasizing the importance of neutralizing Tom Stone at all costs. To the CIA, the hostages were expendable collateral damage in the pursuit of a larger objective. Larson listened to their commands with a sense of resignation. He knew the harsh reality of his profession. Sometimes sacrifices had to be made for the greater good. But as he watched the tense standoff play out on the live feed, a nagging sense of doubt gnawed at him. Could there be more to Tom's actions than met the eye? Larson couldn't shake the feeling that there was something deeper at play, something he hadn't yet uncovered. Suddenly, a new voice broke through the chatter in the command bunker, a familiar voice that sent a chill down Larson's spine. It was one of his superiors, a ruthless operative known for his cold-blooded efficiency. "Larson, this is Kincaid. This is your final warning." The voice boomed over the communication system. "If Hamilton's negotiations fail, you know what you have to do. Stone must be taken out by any means necessary." Larson clenched his jaw, his hands tightening into fists. He understood the gravity of the situation, but the thought of betraying Jake and his team began to weigh heavily on his conscience. They were soldiers, bound by duty and honor, and Larson couldn't bring himself to sacrifice them for the sake of expediency. But as the standoff continued to unfold, Larson knew that time was running out. He had to make a decision, and he had to make it fast. With a heavy heart, he steeled himself for the difficult choice that lay ahead. Jake and his team were in the line of fire, and Larson knew that he was their only hope for survival. As the tension reached its breaking point, Larson took a deep breath and prepared to act. The fate of everyone involved rested in his hands, and he knew that there was no room for hesitation. With a sense of grim determination, he readied to issue the final order that would set the stage for the dramatic climax that was about to unfold. The pieces were in motion, and Larson could only hope that he had made the right choice. The next minutes, perhaps hours, would determine the outcome of the deadly game that was being played out at Walter Reed, and Larson was ready to face whatever consequences awaited him. MARSOC, Headquarters, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Hal Nelson sat at his desk in his shuttered office, tension etched into every line of his face as he awaited Jake Hamilton's call. When the secure line finally buzzed, he picked up without hesitation. "Jake, we've been monitoring your chatter. What's your feel about the situation on the ground?" Hal's voice was clipped, betraying the gravity of the situation. Jake's calm voice crackled over the line with coiled urgency. "Sir, I haven't been able to determine what it is Tom wants. He's made no demands. We're somewhat at a standstill. I may have to enter the room if he agrees to that so I can find out more." Hal's heart began to race. He had been dreading this moment, but now that it was here, the weight of responsibility of knowing what Tom's real mission was boiled to the surface. "Jake, this man has become psychotic. Whatever Stone claims his reasons for taking hostages are a fantasy in his own head. He belongs under sedation in a padded room. He has to be taken out." "Understand, sir. But we'll do everything we can to resolve this peacefully," Jake countered. "You'll follow orders, Colonel." Lethal force has already been authorized. Nelson's voice rising in pitch and volume. Jake turned to the phone, stunned at Hal's loss of composure. This was not like him at all. As Jake fumbled to find words to defuse the conversation, Nelson ended the call. Hal then leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. He had known about the CIA operation to neutralize Tom Stone and destroy the medical records at Walter Reed. He had agreed to it, believing it was the right thing to do. But now, as events spiraled out of control, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were all careening at 100 miles per hour towards a brick wall in a fiery crash. Dialing another number, he connected with his contact at Langley, the CIA headquarters. "We've got a problem," Hal began, his tone urgent. "The situation at Walter Reed has ground to a halt. The ground team commander wants to enter the room for close-in negotiations." His contact's response was cool and detached. "We're aware of the situation, Commander. We have a strategy in place." Hal's frustration boiled over. "Your strategy isn't working. Lives are at stake here, damn it." "We have our orders, Hal. The hostages are expendable." Hal's blood ran cold at the words. "Expendable? You can't be serious." "We'll do what's necessary to neutralize the threat, Hal. Even if it means sacrificing your man, Hamilton, for national security." The line went dead, leaving Nelson reeling with shock and anger. He had known that the CIA was ruthless, but he had never imagined they would be willing to sacrifice his top commander. As he slammed down the phone, his resolve hardened. The end of his military career flashed before his eyes as he felt the walls closing in. Outside the hospital corridor, Jake Hamilton stood with a firm resolve, his voice echoing through the tense air as he negotiated with Tom Stone, hoping to find a peaceful resolution to the crisis at hand. "Tom, I know you're scared and angry, but this isn't the way," Jake urged, his tone earnest yet firm. "Let's start by letting a few of the hostages go. Show us that you're willing to cooperate." Inside the room, Tom's eyes flickered with uncertainty, torn between his convictions and the voice of reason that Jake represented. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded reluctantly. "Fine. But only a few." Casey, Jake's team member, who had set his comm gear up in an empty hospital room down the corridor, emerged into the hallway, carrying a laptop, headed in Jake's direction. Casey's usual relaxed demeanor was grim. Arriving at Jake's location, he paused, fidgeting. Jake felt his presence, turned, then looked at his team member crossways. "What is it, Casey?" "Trouble. My hospital security camera system tap failed. It never fails." Jake, not sure what this meant. "Go on." "It never fails unless someone has already tapped in and installed encryption." Jake dryly, "We're not operating alone." Casey nodded in confirmation. "Can you tell who it is?" "Well, if I had 3 guesses, I'd say CIA, CIA, and CIA." "You're certain?" Jake asked. "I've seen this encryption signature too many times. It's them, there is no doubt." Jake nodded in agreement, processing the information. As he turned back to organize the hostage retrieval, Casey interrupted him. "And there's one more thing." Jake turned back sharply. What else could there be, he thought. He was already losing his patience, and Commander Nelson's abrupt tone gnawed at him. "What, Casey? What is it?" "I did an RF scan of the entire building, picked up the usual, two-way radios, wireless routers on major carriers, and even the television uplink truck outside. Then I did a low-frequency sweep in the 8 MHz to 10 GHz band. This is where audio and video bugs usually live." "And?" Jake demanded. Casey held up his laptop. "Bingo." And he pointed to a schematic on screen of the hospital wing. "Found 3 low-frequency emitters within 5 feet of Tom's location. They are elevated about 9 to 10 feet off the ground." "Air ducts," Jake said flatly. "Correctamundo," Casey confirmed. Jake thought aloud. Why would the CIA be working in secret on this? Casey shrugged. "Is there any way to shut them down, jam them?" "There is." Casey paused. "But it would take a few minutes." "Get on it," Jake ordered. This new information forced him into a decision. He had to get into the room, find out what was going on. Why would the CIA be on this? He needed answers. As Casey returned to his comm center, Jake motioned down the hall to MG, who cradled his semi-automatic outside the hospital room. Jake raised the bullhorn to his mouth. "Okay, Tom. My man is going to receive the hostages outside the door. You just have to open it for him." Tom, being no fool, shouted, "Is he armed?" Jake hesitated. "Yes, but he'll put the gun on the ground and slide it away." MG turned to Jake, frowned and shook his head. Negative. Jake pointed to the ground and mouthed, "Do it." "How do I know he's unarmed?" Tom shouted again. "You have to trust me," as he described what MG was now doing. "My man just put the rifle on the floor, slid it away. He is just there to receive the hostages safely. No one needs to get hurt or fire a weapon." The hospital door slowly creaked open. Soon, 5 of the hostages began to trickle out, their expressions a mix of fear and gratitude as they were led to safety. But amidst the sense of progress, one figure remained behind. Cindy, the young woman whom Tom had befriended during the standoff. Despite Jake's pleas, Tom adamantly refused to release her, his last hostage. "Tom, there's no need to keep the remaining hostage. Let her go," Jake implored, his voice tinged with urgency. But Cindy inside the room shook her head defiantly, her loyalty to Tom growing stronger. She shouted out into the hallway, "I'm fine, sir. I'm staying with him. He needs me." Jake shook his head, then dropped it, then looked back up quickly. Okay. But Tom, you and I need to talk, and not through a bullhorn. I've got to come in and talk to you face to face. Do you hear me, soldier? Face to face, man to man." Jake was attempting to give him an order, to reach down deep to a buried loyalty, a command reflex where, as a soldier, you don't stop to think. You just follow orders. Tom replied, "Yes, sir. You may enter, sir." Larson in the command bunker, listening and watching via the audio and video bugs, sighed heavily, threw his head down in his hands and let out an audible grunt. This was not going at all well. His only thought, stop Tom from revealing the mission. He grabbed for the radio, depressed the talk button. "Snipers ready in position." Jake turned and sprinted down the hall toward Casey's comm center and poked his head in. "Have you got it? I have to go into the room. Are we jammed on the bugs?" Not looking up, Casey replied, 5 more minutes tops." Jake shook his head, then had an idea. "Hey, you got a pen and paper?" Casey, not missing a beat and ever the technophile, jokingly asked, "What's that?" as he rummaged and found a pen and a pad in his bag on the floor. "I don't have 5 minutes, Casey. I'm going in now, but keep working on the jam." "Yes, sir," Casey replied as Jake sprinted back down the hall and slowed himself close to the room. He handed MG his sidearm and cradled the pen and paper. MG looked at him confused. "I'm here, Tom, outside the door. I'm unarmed. Open the door, soldier." Jake watched the doorknob slowly turn,